put your hands together for the late morning program with your host, Namarasa.
All right, I didn't have a tech guy today, so I had to do it myself.
Got it. No problem.
How's it going? Thank you.
Great.
Thanks for doing this,
Good to be
Kalpa.
here.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
For those who don't know, this is Kalpavrksa Kevin Craig, who's a famous tattoo artist.
Not famous.
Okay, not famous, but a very good tattoo artist. Kirtaniya, designer, sculptor, everything. I've known him for quite a while now. He's a good friend of mine. And I really appreciate you coming on because I love your outlook on things, and I'd like to hear your story, and I think a lot of people could benefit from it and find it really interesting. So I just want to start off, like, tell us about your upbringing and about how you kind of contacted spirituality. I think that would be a good place to start and see where that goes.
Okay. So I was born and raised on the Jersey Shore, right? Actually, we have a map. We have a visual aid. Nice. So right here, right above Asbury Park, was a town called Long Branch, New Jersey.
Nice. New Jersey.
And Long Branch, New Jersey. Prabhupada.
This is a native of New Jersey.
Yes, Srila Prabhupada stayed there when he was sick.
That's right.
Right.
Awesome.
So when I became a devotee.
Yeah.
And later found out it was like, wow.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really kind of cool, just being from this nothing, beach town that I just had such, growing up there, just had a dismal outlook on.
Right.
It's just like, I'm never getting out of this place.
Right.
At least Prabhupada was there.
Mm.
So as a pretty young child, I always just kind of had a lot of questions about, I guess, just life in general. I was, as I was saying, we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I guess the beginning of my spiritual path was through martial arts. So when I was 12, 13, 14, around that age, there was a local dojo,
mm-hmm.
and that taught judo, specifically just judo.
Nice.
No karate or anything else. And judo is actually a sport.
Yeah.
Before it's but actually it's a sport before it's a martial art in the sense that it actually came out of jiu-jitsu. It's like the sport form of jiu-jitsu. So my sensei at the time, he was actually a philosophy professor of all things. That was like his, what he did. That was his job.
Yeah.
So he was always, as a kid, he was always giving me these books, kind of these like Eastern wisdom books, little like Buddha saying books and stuff like that. And my first kind, if you will say, was Book of Five Rings, Miyamoto Musashi. It's this book that describes the elements in man in relation to the five elements.
Okay.
So that was like my first introduction to, I guess you'd say, to Eastern things, so to speak. So did that for a number of years and was just kind of fascinated about, just start questioning things as a kid, like what is my purpose, why am I here, etc. and so forth. And then I got a little bit older. I got into like punk and hardcore music.
Okay.
Skateboarding, like heavily into skateboarding. Spent a lot of time. Came from a single parent household. My mom worked a lot, so I was kind of raised more by the crowd that I hung out with.
Right.
Fortunately, I got in with a good crowd, straight edge kids.
Oh, okay.
So
like Shelter and all that, or was it before then?
It was years before Shelter.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Like Youth of Today, Uniform Choice, like all these older,
okay,
older bands. But point being that eventually, and then the Cro-Mags had a huge influence on me.
Okay.
In terms of, you start as a kid, you get into music. First thing you do is you hear the music, and then you read the lyrics.
Yeah.
And then, do these apply to my life or not, or can I apply this to my life? So I got heavily involved with that. Always kind of had heard little things here and there about these people called Hare Krishnas, actually through the Cro-Mags. through just through the hardcore scene. And it was seemed very like kind of mystical, almost like very like shrouded in a way. Because I didn't have any real exposure to any of it growing up. But then my first taste of anything written about the Hare Krishnas was Rolling Stone had done an article, which was like a very abridged overview of Monkey on a Stick.
Oh my God.
It was called Murder, Madness, and the Hare Krishnas.
My brother-in-law would never let me read that book. I was like, can I please read it? He's like, no, you could read it in a few years.
You know, after, not to get off on the tangent, but after I read
We're all about tangents, by the way. We're all about tangents.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I'll bring you back.
After I read that, later I read that book. Like many years after, just because I never had access to it. But when I did, I read the book. And it actually, in a lot of ways, it made me more like, well, just, I don't know what it was, reading that article, I don't know if it was just coming in contact with Krishna's name or whatever it was, I was like, man, this is like, I gotta, it just, you know, I was at a point in my life where my life was just kind of chaos anyway.
Right.
So I was like, what could go wrong if I just get like hooked up with the source of madness. You know?
Oh my gosh! And, wow.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, that was really like the beginning of. That was what piqued my interest in like who are the Hare Krishnas, and then later after that, a couple of years later, you know, I went through all these changes as a kid. I dropped out of high school, pretty young age.
Yeah.
You know, like 16. Like literally, just called my mom on the phone. I was like, I just quit school. And she, you know, she's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "You can either pick me up or I'll walk home. I just quit school." So the guy. Oh, and you said don't mention names,
right?
Because if his name comes out of my mouth, I'll start cursing anyway. So I won't say his name. But such and such guidance counselor said, "You just have to come here and sign me out." So that was it. That was it for me with school. Yeah. At the time, and so I stayed out of school. I got a job with working for this older guy. That was part of like used to put on a lot of the local hardcore shows. Okay. He worked at he ran this pizza place. So my first job was like making pizza. One of my first jobs as a kid, and so I had this time of where I was like felt like, all right, I have to become more responsible because I just made this like really like brash decision of just, you know, it was like a very like nihilistic decision. It was like, I don't care what happens after this point. So after I left school, I got a job, I started working and just stayed really involved with the hardcore scene and everything. And so the Cro-Mags had put out the Best Wishes album, which has the famous Nrsingadev picture killing Hiranyakashipu. Right. And this is like pre-internet, you know, I think it was Walden Books and was it Border Books? Very just limited information. So I'm looking at this album cover, and on the back of it, the photo. I mean, I'm just fascinated with this picture. Right. You know, never seen anything like it before. And on the back of the album cover, it says photo courtesy Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. I'm like, oh, so, you know, putting two and two together, if I just go find these Bhaktivedanta books, then at least I can find out like what this picture is.
That's amazing.
I'll probably find. Yeah, I mean that's just, you know, I mean that's because I'm pre-internet. I grew up pre-internet.
That's
so
right.
You had to rely on your own volition of like figuring things out, right? Exactly. Yeah. So I was like going around, and you know, like, you ever hear of the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust? Like going to all these bookstores, like never heard of it, never heard of it.
Wow.
And so, you know, that was like maybe a year or two, and then sometime after that, I was on the Point Pleasant Boardwalk. And it's funny because a friend of mine just did we were together. A good friend of mine just did a mini documentary for Vice. Oh. And he actually told a similar story. Really? So, and we were all at the boardwalk one day, and this guy comes up to me, and he goes, "You're under arrest."
Oh my God, I know.
And I'm just like, Well, my reaction was just like the longest sigh in the world, just like, God, like, all right, you're gonna ask me for money, you're gonna do this. He goes, you're under arrest. I'm from the Smile Police, and he shows me this jogging on sticker.
Oh, no.
So I was just like, oh God, like, you know, who is this dude or whatever. And then, so, you know, so we start talking, and then he has these books, and so at that point, I had already found in the bookstore, I think, Penguin.
Penguin, yeah.
Has the Bhagavad Gita.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the Bhagavad Gita at that point. That's what I had found. Like, oh, maybe, you know, you want to go to Indian, you know, world religion section. That's the best that I think I ever really got from any of the bookstore. So then I had my little Bhagavad Gita, and then I met this devotee who was doing books on the boardwalk in Point Pleasant. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, you have the books. I was like, you have the books.
Oh my God.
And so, you know, I had whatever I had on me, maybe like $7 or $8, and then I just bummed money off of like whoever, you know, my buddies that were, oh, dude, you know, give me $1, give me I gotta get these books. So I got, I remember it clearly. I got the soft covered Gita, which is just the like English translations, none of the Sanskrit or none of the, just the English translation of the purports. Coming Back, Higher Taste, Science, Self-Realization, all, you know, I just was like, almost like begging the guy.
Whoa.
Like, whatever you got, this is all I got, give me all these books.
Every book distributor's dream.
Right. So, and then that was it. Oh, and I got the soft cover, I believe it's called You're Ever Well Wisher Now, but it was called He Built the House the Whole World Could Live In. It was like the little Amrita.
Yes.
Like condensed.
Right.
It was softback.
Right. I've seen that,
Yeah, into a little paperback. It was like a black cover, kind of like red foily writing.
Yes.
Yeah. So I got that book, and then I just disappeared in my room. You know, I got home, and it was just like, my mother's like, you know, why are you in your room? I'm like, oh, I'm just reading these books. You know, this went on for like a week or 2 weeks.
What?
And then I read Prabhupada's life story from that version of the book. Mm-hmm. You know, not knowing how expansive it actually is after that. But, you know, that book was just like the turning. I mean, that, like, reading that book alone was just like I was determined to go on this like victory march. Because I was just so inspired. Like, I looked at my life.
Wow.
And I was just like, your life is crap. I was like, this old guy just gets up, like, you know, he's like old. At this point, the dude's like older than my grandparents. I'm just like, this guy just gets on this boat and just goes for broke, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm going back to school. Like, I'm like, I am going, well, you know, because, you know, my mother's heart's broken, basically, at this point, you know? Like, you know, what's going to become of her son, etc. And, you know, it just seemed like it just all came to, you know, that was, like, one of the first major paradigm shifts that I had in my life about, like, just do something.
Right.
You know? And whether it's going to be great or not, so what? Like, it's almost irrelevant. But the important thing is that you go out and you actually try to make something happen. So that was it. And then me and a couple friends from the shore that were interested in Krishna consciousness, just mainly through the books. And by the way, I found out this devotee, am I allowed to say his name?
Yeah, you can say.
Prabhupada disciple, Sori.
Sorry, okay.
Yeah, Sori Das, who I later met in Vrindavan, like years later. And I was just like, oh my God, you're the guy. You're the guy. You're the reason I'm staying. You know, I mean,
he was the one on the Point Pleasant.
100%. 100%. Because I got his name when he was, you know, and I remember him saying, like, and we all called him, like, Shar. You know, we didn't really know how to, you know, pronounce the word. But then I was like, I saw his face and I was like, that's the dude.
Yeah, he has a distinct look.
Yeah, and I just remember, you know, getting like just hyper emotional when I saw him.
Oh my God.
It was like, oh, like, I'm standing here right now because of you. Like, just this whole like.
What was his reaction? Do you remember his reaction?
Yeah, he was just like, yeah, you know, this is, you should, you know, go take the, you know, he was like very like sober, just kind of like
passing it off.
Yeah, just so, you know, really nice. Yeah, I just, you know, amazing experience.
Yeah.
And so we would go often to the we'd go to the Brooklyn Temple. My first temple I went to actually was the first time I met Hare Krishna devotees after that. Was a bunch of people just piled into a car. We drove down to DC. There was this like weekend hardcore music festival going on called the Fall Brawl, and I won't mention names, but I can remember again, I met devotees there who I still know to this day.
Okay, well, you can mention them if you know them today. Yeah.
Jai Tai.
Chinese.
He was a brahmachari. They were handing out like peanut butter cookies.
Right, Chinese.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and then I just started interacting with it was like kind of like happening in my life where every couple weeks or every month it just became. Prior to that, it was invisible. Like just anything to do with Krishna was invisible but then once I tuned into it, then here and there you start seeing little reminders of that. And then so after that weekend, I mean, we were just like one night it's like we slept in the car, one night we snuck into someone's hotel room. So then the last night of the weekend we're driving back, and we went to Philly, and the car I was in, they were just basically like, Philly's as far as I could take you. I was like, all right, I'll just find my way, 2 hours home from there somehow eventually. Yeah. And then I actually ended up at a New Vrindavan temple, which they're on South Street across. Do you remember where the old Govindas was? No. That store Garland of Letters on South Street?
No.
So it was still Hari Ashva's place.
Yeah.
Right? It was like his, obviously his place.
Yeah.
And they were like closing or something, but they were having the Sunday program across the street. It was, you had these like two things, and I just assumed that they were the same. So that was the first, I guess, a temple. It was more like a preaching center. It's like really kind of like well done. They had these huge pictures in the windows, like these like huge. I don't even know where you'd get something like that printed back then. It was, it was like one picture was like Krishna. Like I just remember everything clearly. One picture was Krishna, one was Arjuna. It was just kind of like Bhagavad Gita scene, and and that was that. So just anyway, to cut out the details. And then I went back to high school. Got a job working at the hospital through a friend. I was working in the kitchen, just washing dishes and doing stock room for the kitchen, for the hospital kitchen. And I was going to the temple regularly in Brooklyn. We would go up, stay for the weekend, go like Friday night, go out on Harinam. Saturday you'd go to some house in Long Island. People,
I love those.
Great.
I remember those.
Yeah, just get in the car and we're gone. Back to Kevin, get in the car. We're gone. Yeah, and you just end up at somebody's house that you don't know. You hardly interact with them. It's like.
How old were you at this point?
I was probably had just turned 18.
Wow. Okay.
Because I went back to school when I was 8. I was 18 when I went back. I graduated high school when I was 20.
Okay.
Because I had taken
some time off.
Yeah, I took 2 years off.
Right.
And they wouldn't let me. I just didn't have enough credits then, so I had to start the 10th grade over, which was fine, actually, because I got really super involved in school with, that's when schools, they don't really have them now, but when I was in school, they had really good elective programs.
Right.
Wood shop, metal shop.
Oh, yeah.
Print make, you name it, and I just maxed out on all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And my family, my biological father, my mother's stepfather, I grew up with the influence of just working with my hands my whole life.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I got heavily into art and building things. And when I was back in high school, what I thought I was going to be, I actually wanted to be a woodshop teacher. That was what my dream was, because
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, I was
I remember.
It's kind of still a passion that I have now.
Right.
Is woodworking and stuff. So, but what happened was I went to some countless show at Middlesex. I remember where I was. It was at Middlesex County College. I run into this kid that I know from skateboarding, and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend?" I'm like, "Man, just same old thing." He's like, "You want to come over and get a tattoo?" I was like, "Yeah, dude, sure." So that was essentially, the following weekend, his mom went out or whatever, and he just happened to have this tattoo equipment.
Oh,
so
man.
So that was the beginning of that. And very shortly after that, he's like, "Oh, yeah," and that's what stupid kids do. And there's just so much evidence of it today.
Yeah.
Kids just tattoo each other when they get the opportunity.
Right.
So it was shortly after, it was like, "Do you want, you want to do a tattoo on me?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." Blah, blah. So the thing that happened with the tattooing, how I feel like I really got into that, was that tattooing, like the machines. You were at the shop for a little while with me.
Yeah. That was a great time.
That was an
time.
amazing time.
I was like, weekends, just drive over on a Sunday, take care of the shop,
Right.
and almost kind of witnessed a few almost fights and stuff. The kind of people that come in there is like,
unmatched,
oh man,
just madness.
such
just
great times.
Total
Thank you for that
madness.
experience. I appreciated
Thanks for being
that.
there.
Yeah, it's a good experience.
Absolutely.
Anyway, then you were saying.
Yeah, no, and then so then I have this tattoo machine in my hand, right?
Yeah.
And then I just realized that the principles of the to me, I was already good with tools.
Right.
Because I had all this just life training growing up.
Right.
With, when I was 10, my grandfather would just be like, "The tools are over there if you want to go make something," power saw, just whatever. So,
Nice.
So the tattoo machine was like nothing at that point. From a mechanical point of view, I was like, "Oh, this thing makes perfect sense," for the most part. So I'm always going to be a work in progress artistically, but from a technical point of view, it was almost instant for me.
Yeah.
So I just jumped on it, and I started it as a hobby in high school. Went to New York City, again, pre-internet. You had to literally go upstairs and then go knock on a door, and if they'd so I found this guy who's still in New York City now selling tattoo supplies, but it was a very small operation then. I bought a professional tattoo outfit kit, and then was working, tattooing people in the school, just tattooing the kids I went to school with.
Whoa.
And right out of high school, I got a job.
Really?
Yeah, I got offered a job from someone I knew from the hardcore scene, whose father owned a tattoo shop. Mm-hmm. And the rest is history as far as career-wise.
You've been doing it for
26 years.
Dang,
Almost
26 years.
Yeah. The spring of '92, I started. Right before I graduated high school.
Amazing.
It was when I started, and then then that summer, I just walked right into a job, tattooing.
Wow.
And it's just been, it's been my career.
Yeah.
I've done other work. I've got other artwork related stuff. But, it just, as far as more commissioned work, not going to look for it, but if somebody's like, "Dude, can you do this for me?" Sure.
Yeah.
And, people generally pay me for my stuff.
That's great. The Back to Godhead did that article a few years ago on
Madhava.
Yeah.
Not Madhava wrote Small.
Madhava, yeah. He wrote that article. What did you think how that went? Did you hear anything of what people said or
what was funny about my take on tattooing? Although I it's I guess from my perspective being in the business, and you saw what it really is.
Oh yeah.
It's not Miami Ink.
Oh my god! He used to tell me that every day.
Right.
He's like, "You're like, this is not Miami Ink. What are you doing?" And I was like, expecting some cool people to come in and make friends with them and stuff. No. One time a guy dropped his gun and stuff.
Yeah, right. It's right. There's so many tales from the dark side from the tattoo shop, and that's
especially that area.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what it is. That's so.
Keep talking. I just want to
go ahead. And so with that said, at that point,
I can get Nimai back on.
I would say at that point when we did the BTG article, I was, I want to help devotees in any capacity.
Yeah.
Although my take on you can make anything spiritual.
Right.
You can do anything for Krishna, as far as you want to stretch it and say you're doing it for Krishna. Sure, go for it.
Yeah.
Myself personally, I don't see any problem with like devotees getting tattoos. Of course, it's not, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But my day-to-day experience it's spiritual in the sense of, of a karma yoga sense. I'm doing it for the purpose of supporting my family and trying to, use the results of my work towards just supporting my life and my family and stuff. But the day-to-day experience, there's nothing, and there's people that'll hate me for saying this, there's nothing intrinsically spiritual about doing tattoos. And I'm okay. I'm cool with that. Other people have other opinions. You can make it. I enjoy it, and it's really my passion for the craft of actually just, I don't care what I'm on a day-to-day, as far as it's what I do for a living, I don't care what I'm doing.
Right.
Like, I don't care if it's a picture of Krishna or if it's, that's always nice.
Yeah.
And I get devotee traffic constantly.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, people coming and going all the time. Because I'm like, in that area, I'm the guy, I'm close to New York City.
Yeah.
I'm the guy to go to, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I made a lot of close relationships with devotees through the tattoo shop. I've introduced countless people to Krishna consciousness, through tattooing.
That's
very,
amazing.
I'm very, my boss.
Yeah.
He's totally cool with who I am and what I do.
Right.
And he respects it. And so I've never had any, I don't have a problem I have all my corner of the room with pictures, and there's always books and little things, and people ask questions, and I don't have any problem discussing.
Because you're sitting with people for so long.
Yeah, you're spending a lot of like close personal time with people anyway, and people, generally speaking, want some sort of interaction beyond just, who won the game, or people like to talk about things that are interesting, or hear something, or hear a new perspective. As a person from like my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami, when I talk to people, I always think WWGD, what would Gurudev do or say?
Right.
So it's a really good opportunity, and he was such like a loving person, and he really enjoyed, from the time that I spent with him, he really enjoyed talking to the common person.
Right.
You could just see it in his face. Like, that was like his thing. He just he loved it. He just loved being like a genuine person, and just, seeing, and that's how I look at the people that I deal with. It's almost like a fun challenge. Like, can I crack this nut? Yeah. Like every person that I meet, can I, in terms of, and nothing heavy, but you have to be genuine with people. Mm-hmm. And then you have to explain who you are, where you are. You explain to them exactly who, I don't come up with some false pretense that I'm this like holy man or this or that.
Right.
I have a lot of a lot of, if affections were, a lot of affection for the Bhagavad Gita and what it's done for me. It's like, it's really the lens that I look through every day.
Right.
And it's really, when you kind of just loosen up with it, and you stick to the principles, and then you just kind of improvise the details that need to be there at that moment to communicate with somebody. Right. It becomes very easy, actually. I find it very easy to...
Explain that a little, like loosen up meaning...
No, just I'm very much be myself. I don't try to act like I've achieved anything more than anyone else has. Right. Like in my approach to communicating with people, I always try to keep it on the level that we're just equals in the sense of we're just kind of like we're just having a conversation about this. And what is that called? The Socratic dialect. Like Socrates had this way of almost where you ask people questions, about who you are and what do you do, to bring them to a point of like a higher understanding about. Okay. So that's really, really helpful when just dealing with people. And a number of people, they get sometimes I'll give them books. Yeah. Or countless people. We always have kirtan on in the shop, or just, I have a lot of like I'm really into bhajan music. I'm a big fan, like Vinod Agarwal, right? And Pandit Jasraj is like my favorite. Oh, really? So this is like going all the time, and people hear these things, and they're just like, "Oh, what is this?" Yeah. So it's always a good way just to a good parlay. And
I remember people would ask about music, or they ask about a picture or something.
So it's so in that way, to me, that's the most spiritual part of the job, is just communicating the essential ideas of Bhagavad Gita, in terms of, I like to kind of get people to tell me like, what's your one problem? And then I try to give them this, like, however long the session of the tattoo is. Yeah. I see how many, like, if it's a 3-point program, a 5-point program, or something of like how they can improve their life. Right. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it's fun.
That's great.
It's fun. I love it.
That's really awesome.
That's like one of the parts that I genuinely enjoy about my
That's
job.
Great to hear.
Just interacting with like so many people. Whereas a lot of people are just like, I can't freaking stand these people.
Yeah. But, like other tattoo artists.
Yeah. I mean, there are some people that have a more like jaded approach to it, but
right. Yeah. So as far as your, then after tattooing, beyond tattooing, you were also like an artist and sculptor in different ways. You made your own Jagannath deities and
right,
and you build Rathayatra carts and things like that.
Well, yes, whatever I can see. All of that stuff came from. What's the saying? Necessity is the mother of invention. Right. So what happened with... So this is the one point that we were talking about before that we wanted to make sure to address. So sure. I've always been fascinated by the social history of ISKCON. Okay. Okay, that's always been... Not in like a romantical sense, like, oh, it was better then, or it's going to be, not think of it, but just look, I read all those books. Yeah. I read Lilamrita. There's so much history in those books. And just, I love all when somebody puts out like, like the Transcendental Diaries, or there's just so much like history in those books of like who did this, when, and where. Yeah, these little details. So that stuff's always fascinated me. And one of the, I was just amazed, and I've just been amazed and inspired all these years by hearing all these stories of like how the first deities came to be, and these devotees that built Rathayatra carts. And did so many amazing things. All the DIY that went on at New Vrindavan. Oh yeah. I mean, it's the whole palace. It's just amazing. Yeah. I mean, and maybe to the person that doesn't understand that what went into that. Not that you take the beauty of it for granted, but you don't really, until you have that mind to understand what went into building all that. It's hard to really appreciate what went into all that. Definitely, yeah. And there is. That is all those artisans and craftsmen that did all that stuff. That's a really important, everything beautiful that we have in Krishna consciousness came from somebody's hands. The deities, all that jari work that goes into making all those outfits, insane dresses. So yeah. A lot of my travels to India, I've been there, numerous times over the last 20 years. It's always part of my trip, a big part of my trip, as much as I can get away, for what I want to do, right, is always like go make friends with the local shopkeeper. Take me to your secret lair. I want to see how this is done.
Yeah.
You know, just because it's beautiful and it's amazing. The fact that so much, you know, so whether the people doing it realize what they're doing it for is regardless. The art, in a theoretical sense, that it's just amazing and it needs to be preserved.
Definitely.
And the more of that we can do here ourselves. You know, not that we want to become independent of anything, but it's a good engagement. You know, to be able to do these things yourself and to get people involved. My involvement with you know, the Rath Yatra cart, the first one, it just came out of a need. And how did I get the idea for it? I saw the cart they use at Gitanagari. And I just looked at it and I was like, I could do that. You know, not diminishing it,
of course.
But I understand. You know, in there's only two principles. One thing that Christian consciousness has taught me is you can just live your life by principles, and there's all different categories and types of principles. But if you just understand principles, you can apply them to everything over and over again, and it just works.
Like, give an example.
Well, like construction, there's two basic principles.
Okay. Which
is plumb and square. If you can get those two things right, you can build anything.
Plumb and square.
Plumb means that if you have a string with a weight on the end, and when that thing stops moving, that's plumb.
Okay.
Means it's at a perfect vertical.
Right.
Right? And square is, generally speaking, is the strongest angle that you can have in, you know, building. All the walls are square. The table's built on square.
Right.
Right? So when you look at things from that point of view, like, you know, general construction, it starts making sense. So, you know, like I said, I was already, by the time I was, you know, 7, I had already remodeled the kitchen with my grandfather.
Wow.
It's like, you know, so, you know, we're brought up in it, you know, just brought up in it. So it's, so we needed a Rath Yatra cart for the Indian Independence Day Parade that we on Oak Tree Road.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, right. So that was like the first time that we, that we needed that. So I figured it out, and I had taken all these, you know, Krishna or Super Soul just sets you up in life to succeed later, I believe. So that first Rath Yatra cart, I had done, you know, all the ordering. I built, literally, I live on a dead end. I built it in front of my house, pretty much single-handedly, and I did all the sewing for the canopy and everything, because I took sewing in high school. So it was like
home ec.
Like home ec. And then myself and my wife, we actually, before we had kids, we took a sewing class because we were like into making deity clothes and stuff.
Wow.
So like, you know, this was like before life got crazy with kids.
Right.
And
5 children, by the way.
5 children.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going to touch on that later.
Sure. And then, so we have the cart, and now we need deities. So then the next thing came about. So
why don't you just order deities?
Because
why? When you can make them.
When you can just make them. Why go through all the hubbub?
You're so unique. I'm telling you.
No. So what happened? I can tell you everything. How it happened. So,
yeah, please.
So Brooklyn has this massive. You know, they have that big juggernaut that they bring out every year.
Yeah.
So the minute I saw that, you know, I just walked around at 360 degrees, and I was like, duh. Like, this is so, like, I could just make
You're like,
these. Yeah, like all the calculations just happened within, like, maybe, like, you know, like literally within 5-10 seconds. I was like, this is like such a no-brainer.
Really?
And, yeah, I mean, yeah, from a point of view, well, because it's not to go overly into the process, but like that. So the deities that I made, although maybe in the earlier days of ISKCON they could have been installed, but now with, you know, the deity ministry up the ante on a lot of
of
things,
course.
which is understandable.
Yeah.
But the deities that I made, I actually made a few sets of them. I made the large, 2 sets of large full-size ones.
Right. Jagannath Baldev
Yeah,
Subhadra.
and Sudarshan.
Sudarshan, yeah.
And then I made 3 small sets after that. So what they're basically carved foam, kind of built up, constructed carved foam, wrapped with fiberglass cloth and resin, sanded to like almost like a glass finish,
Right.
and then just painted.
Amazing.
So, and that's essentially what that Jagannath, the big Jagannath in Brooklyn is.
Right.
So I just made them.
Where are all those sets?
The first set is with my godbrother, Sri Vrindavan.
Okay.
And then the other set, which we use at the temple for like Snanyatra, and they still use for the Atlantic City and Oak Tree Road Rath Yatra.
Oh, they're still okay.
Yeah. Like those are the deities that come out usually.
That's great.
They are at Krishna Namananda's house.
Okay.
Who we go to his house and do kirtan.
Nice.
Like a couple times a year, so I get to see him.
Cool. Tell me a little bit about like meeting your spiritual teacher, because I know that had a lot to do with just your development and your spiritual life. And
right. So what happened was I had been coming around to just going to the temple and stuff. So I had heard from my now godbrother about this guy who was holding these like meetings in this kind of like brownstone-y type of house down in DC, who was once, I couldn't get like a whole, he was always like, oh, you gotta go listen to this guy, you gotta go listen to this guy. It was like that type of thing. So, there's a little bit of backstory there. He used to be with ISKCON, now he's kind of doing his own thing, yada, yada, yada. So we go down to 9th Street in the DC area, and we walk in, and there's just these people dancing like we're at this like African festival. It was awesome. It was like amazing. It was wild. Yeah, I mean, that's the only way to describe it. Like we just showed up in the middle of like whatever was going on. And it was all these people kind of like Afrocentric, like dashi, rocking those like dashikis, which kind of look like a kurta, but it's like a
really long yeah.
kurta. Yeah. And so there we were. Lo and behold, little did we know we met our spiritual master.
Wow.
Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, who was well known at that time as Swami Krishna Pad.
Right.
That's what everyone had. That's just the name he went by, like locally within his group. And he was doing a lot of kind of these outreach preaching programs like Howard University, and he'd go to these kind of like spiritual bookstores, and he would do. So, long story short, we just started to hear him. We would go, and the people there were really super inviting and just like really, really friendly. And they had deities. I had this little altar set up, which were his Radhashama Sundar deities. You've seen them?
I've seen them, of course.
Looks like they're dancing.
Yeah.
Really cute.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. And it was interesting because my wife, at the time, just who I was as a person. Even when I was into something, I was able to just kind of like take it or leave it. Where like, God, this was an amazing experience, but not much attached to it. Like, if it never happened again, I'll just, big deal or whatever.
Right.
We stayed over at the, close by that night because we got invited back the next morning. We were already devotees, whatever, but we were like, yeah, this is cool. We'll go check out your morning program, see how you do it, type of thing.
Right.
So they had, little, like the original late morning program around, 7 o'clock or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, a Guru Puja. And my wife had said, right, and this still stuck with me to this day, that, she was like kind of freaked out because you're doing this like Pushpanjali type of thing, this teacher guy is sitting in his chair or whatever.
Right.
And although we had both been around a little bit, it was still kind of like we just weren't ready to take any of those, that it still seemed kind of like a little odd or something.
Yeah.
And she said that she kind of like against her, she was a little reluctant, but she offered flowers and she paid her obeisances, and she said when she looked up, that was it. Like, she said, that's it. I knew like I was going to be with this, like he was it.
Wow.
He was the guy. So in some sense, as much as I was inspired in my own way, I kind of followed her lead.
Yeah.
In one sense. And, she's the one that got me to start chanting 16 rounds.
Wow.
I was just like a lazy, I just liked the food and the music and, the art. And it was like, it was cool. I could go there. I'd always run into people,
Yeah.
We were just like kids living in the city. She was, we moved, she was going to school on the Upper West, Midtown, Manhattan, West Side. And, we were just kind of hanging out, having fun, like going out every night, riding our bikes, going to movies, just stuff you do in the city. I was like tattooing part-time here and there.
Wow.
And, and then we just kind of started getting serious, as a couple, I guess you'd say. We got super involved. Best days of my life. There's so many people I can think of without mentioning names, but we all kind of gravitated towards the same neighborhood. We lived in Park Slope, and we all got involved with 26 2nd Avenue, like when 26 2nd Avenue made its comeback, kind of.
Right. It was closed for a number of years.
It was closed for a number of years, and the Brooklyn Temple had kind of like secured it again as a property and leased it.
Right.
They took out like the lease to get it going again, and then some devotees did some renovations in there. And we were just it was like maybe it was almost like every other night except, I guess Sunday, because then everyone went to Brooklyn. This was like before the Bhakti Center.
Right, of course.
Was what it is now.
Right.
So it was, 2nd Ave was there.
Was the sanctuary there?
Sanctuary was on 8th Street.
Oh.
Was the original sanctuary was like still on 8th Street.
So hadn't even moved to 25 First Ave yet?
It hadn't really moved there yet.
Wow,
yeah.
that's a while ago.
Yeah, it was a long time. I mean, it was like 25, almost 25 years ago.
Amazing.
And then, we just got really involved there, a bunch of us, like cooking, like we used to cook. We'd cook in our apartment and bring the prasad on the subway, like in one of those like laundry carts and Rubbermaid containers.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, those like the best days,
Something that I always hear from people is like, how we used to do things like in Krishna consciousness and now how we do them now. Do you ever feel like, those days were so good and now it's like this or something like that?
Yes, in one sense, but I refuse to become a victim of like romanticism. And romanticism is the idea that everything was better than it is now.
So many people get into that trap of thinking like that.
It's understandable because, of course, you have sentiments,
Right.
And I mean, it was great times. I mean, those were just great, awesome times. All the heavy hitters were still in Brooklyn. Like the kirtan was just it was just amazing.
Of course,
they literally had a crew there. It was like the A team. That's what they were.
Is that did they call themselves that?
No, that's just what everyone called. Those
the A team. Tell me about that.
Well, you know who they are. It's like all the old dudes, like Urja Swat, Rakesh, all just Bhakti Vinod.
Oh yeah.
Ahavala.
Yeah.
Just all just big jack dudes, just killing it. For like. Just killing it for.
Oh man, yeah.
Those were the days.
Those were the days.
In the sense, those days were the days of that time period. Those were the days. But as things move on and evolve, you got to look for what's good here and today too. And if you're not doing that, then you're going to miss out because it's always going on.
You genuinely think like that? It's always going on.
You don't think so? I mean, you have to look for it.
You have to look for it, yeah.
But there was that era, and then, I wouldn't claim to be that I was there for it, but I definitely was in Vrindavan when Ayendra was, I visited Vrindavan. I was in his room. I was here. I was there.
Yeah.
Plenty of my friends were, you and other guys heavily involved in 24-hour kirtan. I mean, that was a movement in itself.
Yeah, right.
So if you looked for it, I think you would find it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
I think so. And beat myself, even though we're friends, and I've literally known you since you were a little kid.
Yeah.
And, I seen all you guys come up.
Yeah.
And just, you all did amazing things.
Yeah.
Kirtan, and you made your own contributions.
Right.
And and you're having you have a kid now. I have kids, so we can only hope that it continues.
Definitely.
Like, what I have to pass on to my kids are the things that I do. Like, that's what I want my kids to be involved with, are the getting involved with the plays, building stuff for that's what I do.
That's right. Yeah, you did that for the dramas.
Make drama sets and do stuff for deities.
Brilliant.
And so I think when we're all contributing in that way, it's when those things were happening, you weren't when the quote unquote best times of your life were happening, you weren't thinking like, man, this is like, I mean, you were thinking this is great, but you're not thinking like, oh, the future's going to completely suck. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just all the way you perceive it.
Right. Perception is so important.
And one of the greatest things that I've learned, one thing that spirituality has taught me in general, is just be grateful for the times that you have. Just, gratitude goes so far. It just takes you so far in life.
Yeah.
Just be grateful for the people and the things.
Definitely.
And
you've been married for almost 25 years now.
Yes. Well, been with the same. Well, we've been married 23 years. We've been together 25.
That's fun.
It's been good.
That's fantastic. You must have some.
Can't complain.
Yeah.
Well, there's one secret.
Please. That's
for me.
That's what I want to hear about. That's what I want to hear about.
And it was before I was initiated. I was at a wedding.
Yeah.
That my Guru Maharaj had presided over.
Yeah.
It was in the DC area, and he had said, this is the one thing that stuck with me. This is it. This is like, if there's one thing I can do that I can hold on to. He said that a relationship is a competition to see who can serve the other person better.
Wow. A relationship is a competition.
Yes.
To see who can serve
the other person
better.
So if you just, and that gets filtered through your head a lot of ways, and you try to wrestle with that in a lot of ways, and you try to minimize it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
For myself, I've just held on to those words since he said it, and that's probably been the thing that always made me feel like, no matter, I mean, I know she's put up with me,
right,
and she's not hard to get along with. she's actually pretty easy to get along with.
Yeah.
So I know if there's been any problems, it's like 90% been me.
Wow.
Throughout the years.
Another one of your Guru Maharaj's principles: in a relationship, always see, if there's any issue, always see yourself as fault.
Consider yourself minimum to be 50% of the problem.
Right.
Be the idea behind that principle. All these, these are all written in his books. His like kind of aftermarket books, leadership for a higher age of consciousness, the Spiritual Warrior series, Beggar, even like Beggar series.
Yeah.
The idea behind that of at least being, because then at least you're being honest with yourself, and you're not just fault. First of all, it removes fault finding. And it automatically brings in the sense of community in the micro sense. The community being between you and one other person.
Oh,
at the very
sense. Okay.
In a very micro interaction.
Of course.
So if you can at least think, maybe I did do this, maybe I did do that, and just be honest. And all it takes for honesty is like humility. So if we're nurturing like humility within ourselves, it's so much quicker and so much easier to get to a resolution.
Right.
Rather than just kind of like looking at your watch, like, man, when's she gonna get it together? It's just, you know, like, so, you know, and it takes time. I'm not, you know, we've, you know, 90% of it is what we do to ourselves up here. It really is.
Of course, yeah. But it also has to be from the other person's side, as well.
Absolutely. To speak on his books, there's another from the first beggar book. There's a passage called "There is no imperfection in the spiritual world," right? That's like one of the entries.
Yeah.
And it describes the idea that if we can't get it right here, like if we're not getting it right here, the way we interact with other people, you are not going back to you're not going to the spiritual world.
Such an important point, and so simple.
It's so simple because there is the title of that entry. There is no imperfection in the spiritual world.
Yeah.
So unless we're perfecting ourselves here, we just don't possess the adhikar. Like we don't have the qualification to be there. Like you just don't. It's just sorry. You know, it required 100% and you got 99.
And is this mostly referring to like relationships?
In that passage, I would, the way that I read it, it's much more about your internal work.
Internal work, right?
Really, what you like, deep internal work. Yeah. Just really being honest. But of course it extends to relationships.
Definitely.
It extends directly into relationships, and not just your friends, not just your temple president. Everybody. Yeah. Just the people, you know, the people you meet on the street.
Definitely.
Because when you develop yourself in such a way, when you purify your heart, right, when all the anarthas go, or if they go at some point, then what's left is just Satchidananda. And then when that's there, everything's, you know, I heard someone give a class once, and they described the word sincere, right? Like give a definition. Yeah. You might know who I'm talking about maybe. You know, it means the root of that word comes from when they would make marble. Yeah. It's like a Latin word. When they have so they would fill the marble with like wax to hide the imperfections. Right. Right? Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So ultimately the point of that is like how clean do we get it? Because if it's 90, you know, like the old Ivory soap commercial, 99.994% pure. Well, there's still some impurity in there. Yeah. But to be 100% pure, it's a long, you know, it's good that the bar is that high. So you don't ever, if you're honest with yourself, you'll never kid yourself into thinking like, yeah, I've arrived, I've made it. Yeah. So ultimately it's by Krishna's grace, but we have the responsibility within ourselves as devotees to always strive for that.
Definitely. That's great advice. So you have 5 children?
Five children.
How has that been, and have you used your, you know, how you deal with, you know, how the principles of your spiritual master has taught you and everything, to use that in the way you've parented your children who are now older now? They, you know, the oldest is in college. Right.
It's been interesting in terms of, you know, they're really, I feel very fortunate, really good kids. You know, they want to be devotees. You know, a lot of it is they're figuring it out. You know, one thing this is just my parenting. I don't maybe recommend this. Yeah. I almost felt like I'm going to just be a devotee.
Yeah.
And see how much of, I mean, I'm always going to bring them to the temple.
Yeah.
But I had it from the day one, like, I'm not going to force these kids to do anything they're not ready to do.
Right.
In the you know, I'm always going to insist that this is how I live, and this is how your mom lives, and this is what we do.
Yeah.
And there are certain rules, you know, like, you know, you're not going to McDonald's with your, you know, like, you're just, you know, there's the set principles.
Right.
100%. There's the set principles of what we do, but I'm not going to, like, force my kids to do X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to force you to chant japa at 5 years old. You don't have to have a sika. You don't blah, 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 blah. With that being said, it's been going really well. You
That's
know,
awesome.
They're, you know, they're in school. They're all in school. They're in public school. My wife works in the school. She's with them all the time. There's other devotee kids in the school.
Right.
We're fortunate. And we're just trying, you know, everyone in the town knows who we are and what we do. You know, we...
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we don't go around preaching, but we don't... I mean, my son's... You know, my youngest son, his name is Ganesham. It's he's you know, from Western, you know, he's as white as this wall. It's like, there's no, like, we're not, like, I'm not hiding who I am or what and again, that's another opportunity. You know, the thing funny with that, like, that type of social interaction that I find.
Oh my gosh.
People, you know, to me, it's almost like a tongue-in-cheek thing. Like, yeah, I'll engage. Like, you want to talk about this? Let's do it. It's like, let's do it. Soccer field right here on the bleachers.
Oh my!
And it never.
Tell us a story or something about that.
My wife's a little more reserved than I am.
Yeah.
But to me, it's just, dude, that's who I am.
Wow.
You know, that's who I am. These are who my kids are. We're the Craigs. We live in this town. We're vegetarians. You know, we're strict. We follow this. We do this on Sundays. That's who we are. Love, you know, take it or leave it.
That's so fascinating to me. Like, okay, you're the Craigs, but you know, you have all have Indian names, and you're vegetarian. You're just basically like an Indian family, but you don't look like it.
No, we don't look like it, right? It's great. I mean, in one sense, that's like who I am as a person. Like, I don't believe in, you know, confrontation in the sense of starting trouble with people.
Of course.
But I do love confrontational discourse, so to speak.
Really?
Yeah, I love it.
My wife's the same way.
I love it.
I'm like Lagima. Like,
right.
I don't, like, don't ask, don't tell.
Right. Yeah, no, I because what am I going to, you know, I mean, you're going to, see, because the thing is, they know anyway. So they're going to form their own opinion. And I'd rather just try to influence their opinion positively, not for my sake, because dude, I'm like, I roll with 200% confidence everywhere I go.
I love that.
No, but not from an egotistical point of view. It's just, this is who I am, and this is what I represent, and I have to be strong. I have to show that quality wherever I go, because that's how I want my kids to feel.
Right.
You know, like, I'm never going to back down about what I believe or why I believe it, or what, and it doesn't mean it has to come to a knockdown, drag out fight ever. Like, you're not going to tell me or make me, you're not going to convince me your way of life is better than mine, what I've been doing for almost 30 years now.
Yeah.
You know, in dealing with the public, it's just that way. Wow. And you know, the other thing is when you're dealing with people, especially in America, people only I've had this conversation so many times with devotees.
I think you might have told me this.
People only respect authoritarianism. If you come at somebody like just super hard, just like, I am not backing down from.
Really?
Yeah, then they have to whether they like it or not. Like, I don't have, like, you know, like this is who we are. This is what we do. You know, this is what we're doing. And no, you know, like you will have eggless cookies at that school party for my kid. It's like we've been doing that. No, I'm just saying we've been doing it for, you know, part of it is that's how we started. That's how we started our family. Like if we're going to be a part of this town or whatever, you know, everyone in our town's cool, but from day one, you know, we just, that's kind of just how we went into it, and we're a good team together, me and her. You know, it's like
of course,
100% like have each other's backs in terms of So yeah, it works out well.
That is so cool.
And then just raising the kids. I always say for every pound of discipline, 16 ounces of love and affection. So you got to stay on them. You gotta stay on them.
Would you consider yourself like a friend?
I'm able to change, yes, but I'm really able to change gears.
Right.
Like I can, like, it can go south real quick. Like, I'm just saying. Yeah. You know, but it's good because then I think they you know, they know as, like, they can trust me.
Yeah.
It's always, everything's in their best interest always.
Definitely.
But just, you know, I mean, we're running a big show. We're running a bigger show than most people.
5 kids.
So if one kid can throw the whole trajectory off, like spiraling out and way out into space.
Right.
So, you know, everyone's got to know their role, and they just got to, and they do it.
Yeah.
And yes, this is the other thing that I learned about parenting. No means no.
Yeah.
No means no. If you say no, it's got to mean no. Although if you say yes, then you're obliged at the same time.
So,
you know, you can't
to hold
just
you to it.
Yeah. Well, no, to yourself.
Oh, to yourself.
You have you have an obligation to follow through. If you tell, like, you can't just give your kid lip service.
Right.
Like, if you say you're going to take them to the movies, you better take them to the movies. Don't just say it to, you know,
keep them happy,
whatever it is.
Right.
So, in that sense, yeah. But it's, you know, it's been good. I never thought I'd have kids, and I had kids with the idea of something that something an ISKCON leader said, is that we should, I said this a long time ago, but another thing that always stuck with me is that we have a responsibility to increase the sampradaya from within.
Totally.
And it should never be looked at as a burden, you know. And while you're doing it, it seems like such a long road.
I feel like that so much.
Although it can be an enjoyable one.
Yeah.
In the sense that this is your opportunity. That's how you have to look at. That's how I look at my life. Is I look at it as opportunities and what I'm grateful for. So.
That's a brilliant way to look at it.
I try to. I really do. You know, I see it's an opportunity for me to work on myself, to become a better person, a loving person, a caring person, a caretaker, a provider. Like, these are the things. If you can't do it for your nearest and dearest, then, like, this is the practice. Like, Krishna is just a theory at that point. Like, this is your chance to.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to love baby Krishna, you got the chance to do it for, like, real in a you know, from your human perception first.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
Take advantage of it.
Definitely. I always, you know, being a new father, I sometimes I think, like, oh my gosh, is this the start of a really long journey?
Yes.
But you know I overheard when you were talking to Tulsi earlier about, like, you never had any, like, regrets or never had any, like, that's so powerful.
It's never seemed. And never at any point have I ever been like, oh my God, this is so much, I can't do it.
Wow.
And when I say can't do it, I mean every day I'm like, I can't do this financially. Like every day of my life, I'm just like, God, how is like this boat not sunk yet?
Wow.
It's expensive, and as they get older, it obviously it gets more.
Yeah.
The difference between baby clothes and teen clothes, price wise.
Right.
And kids hit teen years, they literally eat double of what they were eating when they were. It's just part of it. And times, I have like a force multiplier against me, which is, it's like, so I work a lot, and I'm fortunate. I feel grateful that I have a job that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And I have good people around me that just support my efforts. And
that's great. So we're kind of coming to the end now, and I haven't hit even anything that I kind of really wanted to super get into, so we're going to have to do a recurring guest.
Let's do it quick. Now tell me what you want to talk about.
No, I wanted to talk about your paradigm shift, and then that you were discussing before we started, and also just your relationship with kind of being a Western-bodied family in ISKCON North America that's predominantly Indian. I just wanted to see your views and what your experiences have been.
Do we have 5 more minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Sure.
But another thing is, you have to tell me, you have to promise me to come on again, because I want to dive into it.
Just turn the camera off, and then we'll start it over again. You can just bank an hour.
Right, that's a good idea. We'll change shirts or something.
We'll switch. Right.
Whatever from that you want to comment on.
Sure. Well, it definitely has its challenges. And that's part of the paradigm shift that I'm having. I'm seeing that for me, it's very easy, because people are people no matter where I go. That's just who I am as a person, whether they're like, in the same way that I met my spiritual master in the midst of like what seemed like an African American celebration. It was just like, oh, this is cool.
Right.
Whereas if I go to the temple, or even our temple, CNJ, it's almost exclusively Indian. But for me, they're just people. They're just devotees. A lot of it's different. I'd say they're bringing their culture in. It's not really the established ISKCON culture, if that makes...
That's true. That's true.
So the ISKCON, it's the only real differential for me is more the ISKCON what ISKCON was when it was much more international, so to speak.
Right.
Although I could speak for an hour on my thoughts and views of how it got to that way, and I don't think any of it's bad.
God, that's what I wanted to talk about. But we'll do it again.
We could do it again. But somebody's got to keep the show going, and right now it happens to be Indians. So people better be grateful for that.
The Hinduization of ISKCON. That's I hear that also. Right. Like people, they're saying, oh, there are too many Indian people and this and that. But I was like saying, like, okay, in the 90s and kind of like early 2000s, when like, no, not then, when the 80s or something, when everything kind of like hit the fan, like, how did this thing continue going? It was because the Indian people were there to be like, okay, like we guess we got to do something about it.
Who are one of my deepest appreciations for Indians is just how psychologically they're just ironclad. It's true. It's true. They can just endure anything, like any situation.
I'll just come back.
Yeah, they just keep coming back, and there's just this ingrained. Just this quality that's ingrained where it's just focus on the goal, stay focused on what's important. And all the other stuff, kind of all the bad, if you will, or whatever it is, all the drama and the chaos, it just comes and goes, but you can actually remain fixed in your service.
Yeah.
And I've seen people do that. A lot of people. And it's mostly a lot of these like really... One of my biggest inspirations for my own model of keeping the family together is just that whole Indian family dynamic. Like when that's my idea of when I get older. Like, I want an extended family. I want my kids to have kids who have kids that have cousins that have...
Right.
If I get stuck in Iowa, all I got to do is make a phone call and go stay with...
Patel Motel?
Yeah, just go stay at the Patel Motel, right?
Yeah.
So...
Okay, we'll dive in that more, but that's a taster of what I'd like to talk about. That's great.
Sure.
So just a quick fire few questions. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
10 years, Bhakti Priya and Ganesham will be in their 20s. So
Your youngest?
Yeah, we'll be gone. Who knows where we'll be, but it will not be in Spotswood, New Jersey, because they will all be old enough. The first one of those 5 kids, I'm going to have a key and the deed to the house, and whoever has $1 to make the sale official can have it, and we're gone. That's where we are in 10 years, traveling the world, India, we've already talked about it. We already looked into buying that, there's that... like that airline ticket you can buy. You can travel the world as long as you go in one direction.
Yeah.
That's happening.
Oh my God.
That's happening.
That's super cool. Yeah. Your biggest pet peeve?
Well, I do have dogs. I hate dog hair.
Okay. You hate dog hair.
I hate dog hair.
That's your biggest pet peeve?
Yes.
Okay. If you were stranded on an island and you only had to bring 3 things, what would they be?
Leatherman tool, which I have on me at all times, as
Right.
it is. So maybe that's a given. I don't know, because with that, I could just build a house or a boat to get off the island. So
Yeah, right.
that I definitely some sort of waterproof copy of Bhagavad Gita.
Right.
Something that would survive the journey there and back. That would be very, very important to me. And maybe like a waterproof harmonium. That would be pretty cool.
Nice.
That'd be pretty cool.
Nice.
Something.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, I just wanted to give you my appreciation. You're really a great example for us young grihastas and married people, and you have 5 children, and your outlook on things. I mean, you showed it in this conversation about how being honest and being humble and being grateful is such a big part of being a person, and I see that in your example, and I really appreciate that, and I'd love to have you on again.
Always.
And if anyone wants to get in contact, what's your Instagram?
My Instagram is KVN Craig, Craig, which is it's Kevin Craig without the E and the I.
Okay.
It's
And
just
you're
short,
and
like
you're
a
on
hyphenated.
Right.
I'm on Facebook. It's KevinCraig.130. It's whatever name they gave me. It's
Okay.
like KevinCraig.137, I think.
Right. Okay, cool. Kalpavrksa Kevin Craig. Thank you so much.
And thank you for everything.
Hey.
Always.
Awesome conversations. The reason I wanted you on, because in the shop we had so many great conversations.
Oh man, the shop.
The best.
The
shop. What do we call shop talk?
Shop talk.
Awesome stuff.
We didn't even get to that.
We didn't even get to that. But anyway, this thing will continue, and
sure.
I love that you made the trek over here, and thanks again.
Yeah.
Okay, take care.
And tell your parents I said hi.
Yeah, I will.